So, Assalamu alaikum, and welcome to Yusuf Saidi for this issue of Covered. Yusuf Saidi is a fashion designer, a podcast host, and a radio presenter. And we're really happy to have you with us. And welcome.
Thank you. Thank you very much for having me.
It's a pleasure to have you with us. So, I guess we can start off a little bit with a little bit about yourself. Who are you? And yeah, let's start there.
Okay. Who am I? Yusuf Said is just a very friendly person. I love people, and yeah, man, I like telling stories through art. That's who I am, and I am originally from Zambia, but currently I'm based in South Africa, specifically in Escort. That's where I am currently, but I'm originally a Zambian by birth.
Okay. All right. So how long have you been living in South Africa for?
Oh, it's been quite some time because I came here when I was still in high school.
Okay.
Um, yeah, I think roughly I would say, yeah, it was 2009, I think. Yeah.
Okay.
I think it's been like what, 10 years, 11 years now?
Hmm. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. And I guess, moving into a little bit about your fashion brand now. I guess my follow-up question is, you know, what is your fashion brand about? At a conceptual level, and yeah, how did it come about?
Wow, very good question to start with. Anyway, a lot of people have this, I'm saying, curiosity to find out more about what the brand is all about because of what it stands for, and I mean, because of what it represents when you look at it. Um, Actually, the brand came about. Um, I had this friend of mine actually that wanted to start a clothing business, and he came up to me, and he wanted to get into clothing, and he wanted us to work together. But for the fact that I was working at a clothing store at the time at Muller's Fashion House, I've always been surrounded with dope fashion, so to speak. But this fashion never kind of connected to me in a way that I feel. And so I decided if I had to come up with a clothing brand or if I had to get into a clothing business, I want to create something that will speak to the people, you
Mhm.
know? And yeah, man, and I decided I was like, okay, cool. But I want to get into this business, but I want to create a brand that's going to speak to the people, you know? So fast forward, I just started, doing my homework, and the problem was the name, but I knew what I wanted to create. Um, and I was always having a conversation with one of my brothers. I call him my young brother, Muhammad, who is based in Johannesburg currently. He, he was very interested because he also has like a similar idea of what I had at the time. And he told me he had like a couple few names that he has written down. And he would like to share maybe one or two with me, and I could, pick whatever name I want to pick. So yeah, man, fast forward, he threw a name down. He dropped a name down, which is Zulu Flex. And I wasn't so sure at the first because the name wasn't tied with any concept. It was just a name on its own. It was just plain. And he actually reasoned with me by saying, but look, where you based? You're based in Escort, it's KZN,
Mhm.
and there's a lot of Zulu speaking people. And I feel like this would definitely connect with the people on the ground. And yeah, man, I wouldn't agree more with him, but I decided to give it a shot by doing my own research about the culture itself. Though I was, surrounded with a lot of Zulu friends, Zulu speaking friends, and I also kind of picked up a lot of things in terms of how dominant the language itself is on its own, um, and just how, the pride that Zulu people have. It's something to admire in a way, because they would speak to you in their language regardless of what race you are. I don't know if you have experienced that before yourself, but
Yeah.
have you experienced that?
Yeah, I mean, of course, and I think it's just about living in South Africa where we have many languages and many cultures, and I think that,
Yeah.
like, yeah, I think it's just so important that we also understand how to greet each other and how to speak to each other in our
Yes.
languages.
Yes.
Yeah.
Exactly. Exactly. So, and I've found that there's something interesting about it, So I felt like, okay, the brand itself, if it has that name, it would definitely, have the same type of characteristics, but again, trying to correct some of the things that I feel um, the kind of negative in a way. You know what I'm saying? Because we are not perfect. We all have like our own shortcomings, and yeah. But one of the reason why I kind of felt the name would definitely work to my advantage, it was because of just the pride that Zulu people take in their culture. But Zulu Flakes is more than it just for Zulu people. It's for anybody. As long as you're in Africa, as long as you're a person that's spreading um, positivity, as long as you're a person that's spreading, embracing one another, regardless of what walk of life you come from, Zulu Flakes is for you, because that's what it represents. It's about embracing each other regardless of what walk of life you come from. And there's always something to learn from anybody, regardless of who they are, what culture they are. When you look into them, there's definitely something to learn. So that's how the brand came about. And yeah.
Yeah, that's very interesting. I think it's also around I'm happy that you spoke to this, because you started off saying, you're actually not, you're not um from South Africa originally, but you've occupied a space here for so long that, this brand was influenced by your history, and where you're currently living, and also the language and the people you're surrounded with. But also, a very important thing is that, this came from your friend in Johannesburg. And I think there was a collaboration, around the birth of the name
Yeah.
of your fashion brand. And I think that's really important to also, speak back to, is that this happened in community, your
Mm,
your work, and your intention is that this is for the people. I want, and I thought that was something that I really like. It stuck with me, that, your intention for this fashion brand was for the people. And so I'd like to sort of move into my next question, which is around um, these many identities that you feel you have, and one of that is, being an African man, but also, Muslim, but also a fashion designer, and, having a podcast, and all of this. And I almost wonder how all of these positions that you hold contribute to the work that you do and the stories that you tell.
I feel like everything that I do is kind of tied to each other. So it doesn't even feel like work. It's like a lifestyle for me. Um, when you start with the brand, the brand needs a platform to actually um, get the message across. Let's say, get the message across so that a lot of people can be reminded and can understand what the brand is all about. And that's where the podcast comes in, you know,
Mm.
because the podcast is actually a good platform, and Big up to a lot of young guys that are realizing the power and the potential that the future of the podcast is looking like right now, because I feel like that's the future right now. That's the direction where the world is going right now. So yeah, big up to all the youth that are actually using these platforms to benefit many others. So yeah, man, when you look at where podcasts came from, it was inspired by radio. For me, I started radio after my matric, and I've always had this passion to study radio. And fast forward right now, the dream has changed. I wish to own a radio station one day, so that I can get to, you know what I mean, put out the content that I feel I can have control of. Yeah, so radio, firstly, I'm a broadcaster, so podcast and radio have this similarity, but one thing I love about podcast is that you can express yourself in a different way compared to radio. There's so much rules tied to radio, and also there are people that are in control, and you are being told on how you have to, the things you have to say. There's certain things you cannot say. There's certain opinions that you can't say. That's where the podcast covers that part, right? So what else? Fashion designing, which is branding, obviously, that goes hand in hand. And I feel like that was always inspired by my dad, because he was a fashion designer. He was a tailor, actually, back in the days. Yeah. So I feel like that was part of me. I just didn't realize it until I got to work in a fashion space, and I started, picking up these things about myself, and that I express it in the logos that the brand have. When you look at Zulu Flakes, it got different logos that pass out different messages. There's a map design, there's a zebra print, there's so many different logos, and they all carry a different message. And when you look deep in the brand itself, the colors that we use, they were originated from the Zulu beads. The Zulu beads, right?
Yes.
So the Zulu beads have different colors, and those colors are not just colors. They have a deeper meaning, and those meanings are tied to us as the people, how we live, and the characteristics that we carry within us. Yeah, I don't know if I left out anything.
No, that's absolutely perfect. Um, yeah, I'm really connecting to a lot of what you're saying as well, because my paternal side of my family is also from KZN, and um, also I have a lineage of Zulu. My on my father's paternal side, my great grandmother is a Zulu woman, half Zulu, half Xhosa. So I'm really connecting to a lot of what you're saying. And I mean, I guess I I sort of wanna name that a large part of our audience at Covered are, even though it's not particularly just a Muslim audience, we have people who are interested in the sacred, in the spiritual, in intentional work. And I almost wonder what, what about your religious or cultural background like influences the work that you want to make, or how you choose to express yourself. And I know you touched on it a little bit with your father and carrying something inside of you, which is a part of, I think, generational gifts that we sometimes don't often engage with enough. Who were the people before us and what were they doing? And I just love to know a little bit more about your spiritual processes.
Mm, very interesting and very, very deep question. Yeah, man, like I feel like I completely engage with the Islamic side, the Muslim side of me, the culture side in terms of spirituality, I never undermine that. And there's so many things that I've actually witnessed, and there's so many things that I've experienced myself, because sometimes when you actually look at it in a way, these two kind of connect. There's a bridge, between the two, you know.
Yeah.
Because when you look at the cultures, most of the cultures are inspired by Islam. Most of the cultures are inspired by Islam, though a lot of African people wouldn't realize this. But there's so many things like, circumcising, all these were there long before, science came to life, and, they taught us these things, you know. There's so many things that we can touch on, and yeah, man, I feel like for me, I embrace both my culture and my religion, but if there are things that are against my religion that are in the culture, there I don't go.
Mm.
So that's where I draw the line. Yeah.
Okay. So you're saying that, religion is obviously a really big part of you. What is the sort of one thing that Islam has given you, or your spirituality has given you, that allows you to make the sort of work that you make?
It has given me purpose.
Mm.
Yeah, it has given me purpose, and it has also given me a reason of understanding that every single human being that's on this earth have a certain purpose. And I feel like once you interact with your spiritual self, that's when you're gonna realize your purpose.
Mm. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Absolutely. Um, I guess I'd like to turn our conversation a little bit more into the direction of your podcast work. Um,
Mm.
and yeah, do you want to speak a little bit more about what sort of topics do you enjoy talking about on your podcast? And yeah, how is that growing for you?
Yeah, the podcast has been, taking a production break, though we're coming back now. Yeah, we're coming back now because there was a lot of movements with the team that we built. Other people had to leave, had to go certain places. So there's a space that we're growing, which is Flex Radio. Flex Radio, it's such a very dope space. It's an online radio that that is still in developing. And my two podcasts that are entitled to me, just myself. It's the conversation with Bflex. Bflex is my radio name. The convo with Bflex is where I just interview people. I get to have a genuine conversation with people. I get to talk about people. I feel like every story has to be told, and every story is there for a reason to inspire other people. Other people get inspired, and other people realize their potential or their purpose through other people's stories. You know,
Yeah.
so that's why I have that platform called The Conversation with Bflex. And the other one that I branched out, which has to do with a little bit of Islam in it, it is The Youth at Present. The Youth at Present touches more on current affairs. When you look at the youth and, social issues such as drug abuse, uh, you know, alcohol, teenage pregnancy, and all these social issues that the world is facing currently.
Mm.
We need a platform that can find ways and can try to speak to people that have solutions to these social issues. So that's the conversation with Bflex, and that's the youth at present. Those are the things that we touch on. We get excuse me, we get different, guests coming on the platform, such as the scholars of Dean, and just the people that have experienced the life itself, survivors of drug abuse, telling their stories. These are stories that are there to make a greater impact, and that's why the slogan of it is called the platform of transformation. It's all about transforming yourself. We all can get better. No one is perfect, but if we, make an effort, we can all be better people. And it starts with you. It starts with one person telling their story and inspiring the other person. And from there, if we can inspire one another, we'll be living in such a very beautiful, peaceful environment.
Absolutely. Wow. And I pray that, I pray that, this work continues. Um, I think it's so important. It's so needed, it's so needed in our country that we face violence, every day. The youth are, you know, the, the youth is where we place our hope. And I think that this is so amazing. Both of them, both platforms.
I
And
mean,
I wish it all the success in unfolding. Something that you mentioned, was something around how we inspire each other through conversation. And I guess my question to you is, who inspires you? Where do you draw inspiration from for all the work that you do?
people, people inspire me. Every day, people inspire me. There's, like a lot of people use social media. Let me not speak for others, but let me say, like, the main reason I go on social media most of the time, there are certain people that inspire me, you know. um yeah, I get inspiration from people, and sometimes I just get inspiration from nature around me, nature inspires me itself. There's so much that we don't appreciate around us. Sometimes it's just to take a walk in the park, just a walk in the park. When you come back home, you might have been inspired just by taking that walk. It might have been a thought that crossed your mind because you saw a bird flying by, you know. So yeah, nature also inspires me, and and just looking around you, there's so much to appreciate around nature, so if we can breathe breathe in deep into nature, we can get a lot of inspiration, and all of us, we can inspire each other to take care of mother nature. We can learn about why is it so important to keep our environment clean. We can learn why you shouldn't just throw that bottle of Coke that you just finished drinking, on the floor. You know what I mean? So
Yeah.
these are the things that we need to draw inspiration from. Through that inspiration, we can all find a reason to be better people.
Yeah, absolutely. And I see we are running, we're running towards the end of our interview. But one another question I'd like to ask is, if you could go, this is more of a sort of, it's a bit of a different direction, but if you could go back in time and offer a younger version of you some advice, what age would you go back to, and what would you sort of offer yourself?
I would go back to when I just finished my media studies course. Um, I was so scared of change. Um, I was in a place where I felt like I'm in a comfort zone because I had this job for the first time, that I felt it was, you know what I mean, taking care of all the needs that are needed at the time. But when I was given certain opportunities to leave, I was so scared of just starting a new life in a new environment where I don't know anybody. I think I would tell my younger version of myself to not think twice, because there's never a right time to go after your dreams. And I kept on comforting myself, telling myself that no, this is not the right time. You need to prepare yourself. You are not ready to go in that space, you know. So I think that's the advice I offer myself, or tell myself.
Mm.
There's never a right time to go after your dreams. If something sparks in your brain, go for it. If that's what you really want, there's no need for you to think twice. Because through that move, you're definitely gonna kick down a door that a lot of people will go through.
Yeah. Thank you. Thank you so much for that, for your inspiration, for bringing such a positive energy into this interview. I wish it was longer. But I
Mhm.
had so much, yeah, I had such a lovely time chatting with you. And I wish you and the brand and your work and your podcast, I'll be looking out for your podcasts, particularly the youth, around youth issues. I'm very passionate about that. So yeah, I wish you all the best with your work, and thank you so much for being here. We so appreciate your presence.
It's been such a pleasure. I really enjoyed this as well. Thank you very much. I appreciate the opportunity. Cover Magazine team, shout out to you guys. Keep on doing the great work that you're doing. Keep, giving other people a chance. Like me, it shouldn't end with me. Keep giving other people a chance to tell their stories, and you never know who they might inspire. So yeah, keep on doing what you're doing. Big up. May Allah grant you guys the treasures of Jannah going forward.
Ameen, Ameen. Shukran, thank you. And as Zuluflex, Siabonga.
Yeah, and one more thing, please, if you're listening to this, please do follow us on our social media platforms at Zulu_Flex. That's our page on Instagram and Facebook. Yeah. And my personal account is Yusuf Said. Jazakallah.
Ameen. Assalamu alaikum.
Wa alaikum salam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.